Welcome to my channel. This is not just a book summary. This is a story about life itself. A story about what truly matters when the noise fades. When success is achieved or missed. When youth passes. When time begins to ask deeper questions. This audiobook is inspired by one of the longest studies ever conducted on human happiness. A study that followed real people across decades. Through triumph and loss, through love and loneliness, through health and decline. And what it discovered quietly reshaped everything we think we know about living well. At the beginning of life, most of us believed the same story, that happiness will come later, after we succeed, after we earn more, after we prove ourselves. We tell ourselves that once we arrive at the right destination, peace will follow. But life does not work that way. The people in this study were followed from their youth into old age. Some were born into privilege, some into struggle. Some rose high, some fell hard. Yet as the years passed, a simple truth began to reveal itself. Not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. The quality of a person's life was not determined by wealth or fame. It was shaped by connection. Those who felt deeply connected to others lived longer. They suffered less. They recovered faster from hardship. They aged with more clarity and warmth. Those who were isolated, even when successful, carried invisible weight. Loneliness quietly eroded their health. Their joy faded faster. Their bodies felt the absence long before their minds could name it. Human beings are not built to live alone. We're wired for closeness, for being seen, for being understood. From early adulthood, the researchers noticed something unexpected. People who had at least one person they could rely on faced stress differently. Their nervous systems calmed more easily. Their hearts endured less strain. It was not the absence of problems that protected them. It was the presence of someone who cared. As careers grew and families formed, another pattern emerged. Many chased achievement, believing connection could wait. Some postponed relationships. Some neglected them. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Success felt rewarding. Busyness felt important. But over time, the cost appeared. Not suddenly. Quietly, distance replaced closeness. Conversations shortened. Attention fractured. Those who stopped investing in relationships often didn't notice until later, when silence became familiar, when celebration felt empty. Meanwhile, others made a different choice. They showed up. They listened. They stayed. Their lives were not easier, but they were richer in ways that could not be measured. The study followed people through marriages and divorces, through illness and recovery, through aging bodies and changing minds. And again, one truth held steady. What mattered most was not avoiding pain. It was having someone beside you when pain arrived. As participants grew older, memory began to fade for some, but those surrounded by warmth retained clarity longer. Their minds held on. Their spirits stayed awake. Loneliness accelerated decline. Connection slowed it. The body remembers how safe it feels. As the years passed into later life, priorities shifted. Ambition softened. Competition lost its grip. What people valued most was not recognition. It was presence. Simple moments gained weight. Shared meals, honest conversations, quiet companionship. Regret rarely came from missed success. It came from missed connection. People wished they had reached out more, listened more, paused more. They wished they had understood earlier what they saw clearly at the end. The good life was never about perfection. It was about participation, being available, being attentive, being human with others. And this realization changes how we live today. Not someday, now. It reminds us that every interaction matters, that attention is a form of love, that presence is a choice we make repeatedly. A good life is not built in one dramatic moment. It is built in ordinary days. through small acts of care, calling someone, checking in, listening without distraction. These moments seem insignificant in isolation, but over decades, they become everything. And so this story invites you to pause, to look at your life not through achievement alone, but through connection. Who do you feel safe with? Who truly knows you? Who do you show up for? Because in the end, when time speaks honestly, it does not ask how impressive your life looked. It asks how deeply it was shared. As time moved forward in the study, the researchers noticed something subtle but powerful. Yet their daily lives told a different story. But it did not hollow them out. They had places to put their fear. They had voices that answered back. Others carried everything alone. They looked strong on the outside, capable, independent. But inside, the burden accumulated. The body absorbed what the mind refused to acknowledge. Sleep worsened. Anxiety grew. Health declined. Loneliness was not dramatic. It was quiet. And that was what made it dangerous. The researchers learned that conflict itself was not the problem. Even relationships filled with arguments could still be protective. What mattered was repair. The ability to return, to talk again, to reconnect after distance. Avoidance caused more damage than disagreement. Silence, when prolonged, became separation. As participants aged, many began to reflect on their earlier years. Some remembered chasing things they no longer cared about. Others remembered moments they almost missed but chose to keep. Those moments stayed vivid. A walk taken instead of extra work. A conversation held instead of postponed. A relationship protected instead of neglected. These were the memories that softened aging. The study revealed that a good life is flexible. It evolves. It adapts. What nourishes you at 20 is not the same at 60. But connection remains constant. The form changes. The need does not. As careers ended and identities shifted, people who were deeply connected adjusted more easily. They did not lose themselves when roles changed, because their sense of self was anchored in relationships, not titles. They knew who they were beyond achievement. Others struggled more. When work ended, silence arrived. And without strong connections, life felt suddenly smaller. This was not a failure of character. It was a consequence of misplaced attention. The book does not shame ambition. It simply reframes it. Ambition without connection leads to emptiness. Ambition alongside connection leads to fulfillment. A good life is forgiving. It allows new beginnings. What matters is not how early you start, but that you start at all. The narrative of the book gently challenges modern life. It questions speed. It questions constant productivity. It reminds us that human beings are not machines. We are relational creatures. We thrive in rhythm, in conversation, in presence. And presence cannot be rushed. The good life asks for attention, not occasionally, but regularly. Attention to people. Attention to yourself. Because self-care and connection are not opposites, they support each other. When you feel seen by others, you treat yourself with more kindness. When you treat yourself kindly, you show up better for others. This cycle strengthens over time. The book ultimately leaves you with a quiet invitation to examine how you are spending your days, not in judgment, but in honesty. Where's your attention going? Who is receiving it? Because attention shapes experience, and experience shapes life. The good life is not waiting in the future. It is unfolding now, in how you listen. Take a breath here. Let that settle, because this understanding changes how we move forward. And the story continues. As the story unfolds, the focus slowly shifts from observation to reflection. They were learning how everyday choices quietly shape destiny. What became clear is that most people do not drift into unhappy lives overnight. They drift gradually. One missed conversation, one postponed visit, One relationship assumed would always be there. Time does not steal connection suddenly. It erodes it gently when attention is withdrawn. Many participants believed they were too busy for relationships, too busy building, too busy surviving, too busy becoming. Yet later in life, they realized something painful. Busyness had not protected them. It had distanced them. The book tells this truth softly but firmly. A full calendar does not equal a full life. People who protected time for connection felt more alive even when life was difficult. They felt grounded. They felt accompanied. Hard moments did not isolate them. They were shared. The study also revealed something deeply human. We often misunderstand happiness. Happiness is not constant pleasure. It is not the absence of pain. It is the feeling that your life is held within something meaningful, that you matter to someone, that someone would notice if you were gone. This feeling creates resilience. People who felt connected recovered faster from setbacks. They adapted better to loss. They carried sorrow without being consumed by it. Connection did not remove suffering. It made suffering survivable. As the years went on, many participants faced illness. Some lost partners. Some lost independence. Those who had invested in relationships earlier faced these changes with more grace. They accepted help more easily. They trusted care. Others struggled. They resisted dependence. They felt exposed. The book reminds us that accepting care is not weakness. It is part of being human. We begin life dependent on others. We end life needing others again. The good life honors this truth instead of fighting it. Another quiet theme runs through this story. How we relate to ourselves mirrors how we relate to others. People who are harsh with themselves often struggled in relationships. They hid. They performed. They feared being seen. Those who practiced self-compassion were more open, more forgiving, more present. The relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship. The book does not suggest self-improvement through pressure. It suggests growth through understanding. You do not become better by becoming harder. You become better by becoming more honest. As modern life grows louder and faster, the message of this story feels more urgent. We are more connected digitally than ever before. Yet many feel more alone. The study shows why. Connection is not information. It is attention. It requires time. It requires presence. It requires listening without multitasking. A message sent quickly does not replace a conversation held deeply. The good life cannot be optimized. It must be lived. But because life is meaningful, meaning needs space to grow. When people in the study described their happiest moments, they were rarely dramatic. They were ordinary. A shared laugh, a long talk, a quiet evening with someone who understood them. These moments did not stand out at the time, but they accumulated into a sense of fulfillment. Happiness, the book suggests, is often recognized in retrospect, which is why attention now matters so much. The good life is happening while you are busy planning the future. And the story continues to unfold into deeper insights. As the study moved deeper into the later chapters of people's lives, something unexpected began to happen. The definition of success slowly transformed. In youth, success had been measured by comparison. Who achieved more? Who advanced faster? Who earned recognition? But in later years, comparison lost its power. It felt irrelevant. What mattered was not how high someone had climbed. It was how deeply they had connected. Participants who once defined themselves by status began speaking about something else entirely. They spoke about conversations that changed them, about friendships that endured, about partners who stayed through difficulty. They spoke about forgiveness, about reconciliation, about finally saying what needed to be said. It was as if life slowly peeled away everything unnecessary. What remained was simple. Did you love? Were you loved? Did you allow yourself to be known? These questions carried more weight than titles ever did. The book gently challenges the modern obsession with productivity. It does not dismiss ambition. It does not deny the value of work, but it asks a deeper question. What is work for? If work builds a life but erodes connection, the foundation becomes fragile. If work supports connection, then it strengthens meaning. People who felt their work served something beyond themselves often experienced greater satisfaction, not because the work was easier, but because it was relational. Teaching, healing, building, serving, creating. When these actions connected them to others, work became part of a good life rather than a substitute for it. The study also revealed something important about vulnerability. The strongest relationships were not the most perfect. They were the most honest. Participants who could admit fear, sadness, or doubt experienced deeper bonds. They allowed others to support them. They offered support in return. Strength was not independence. It was openness. Many people spend years trying to appear invulnerable. Yet the good life requires the opposite. It requires courage to be seen. And being seen carries risk. Rejection is possible. Misunderstanding is possible. But so is connection. Without vulnerability, connection remains shallow. With vulnerability, it becomes transformative. The book also explores the reality of conflict. No long life passes without tension. Marriages strain. Friendships fracture. Families misunderstand each other. But conflict alone does not determine the outcome. Repair does. Those who learned to return after disagreement strengthened their bonds. They did not let pride silence them permanently. They reached back. The ability to repair is one of the quiet foundations of the good life. And repair begins with humility. As people aged, many expressed gratitude not for perfect relationships, but for enduring ones. Relationships that survived storms, that evolved, that matured, because the good life is dynamic. It shifts with seasons. The friendships of youth may not look the same in midlife. The love of early marriage transforms over decades. Parents age. Children grow independent. Change is inevitable. Connection must adapt. The study teaches that intentional effort keeps connection alive. Not grand gestures, small, consistent care. A phone call, a walk, a shared meal, a moment of undivided attention. These actions accumulate into trust. Trust becomes safety. Safety becomes resilience. And resilience becomes the foundation of a life well lived. Perhaps the most powerful realization from the study is this: a good life is not built alone. Independence may be admired, but interdependence is what sustains us. To need others is not weakness. It is design. We are shaped by relationship from birth. We are comforted by relationship in hardship. We are remembered through relationship after we are gone. Legacy is relational. No one at the end of life asked for more emails, more meetings, more possessions. They ask for more time with people they loved. And this truth does not condemn ambition. It simply realigns it. Build, achieve, grow. But do not forget to connect. Because the measure of a good life is not found in accumulation. It is found in participation. Participation in love. Participation in community. Participation in shared humanity. The book leaves us with a quiet but urgent invitation. Look at your life now. Not someday, now. Where are you investing your attention? Who are you turning toward? Who are you unintentionally turning away from? The good life is not waiting at the end of the road. It is shaped in this moment. And each moment is an opportunity to choose connection. The story continues still. As the story reaches deeper into its reflection, it begins to speak less about data and more about wisdom earned over time. The study did not only observe happiness, it observed regret. And regret carried its own lessons. People rarely regretted working too little. They regretted not being present enough, not calling sooner, not listening longer, not expressing love while there was time. Regret often came from silence, words left unspoken, apologies delayed, affection assumed rather than expressed. The good life asks for courage, not the courage to conquer, but the courage to connect. Connection requires risk. It asks you to open your inner world to another person, to allow misunderstanding, to accept imperfection. But without this risk, life becomes emotionally thin. The book gently reminds us that emotional avoidance has consequences. When feelings are ignored, they do not disappear. They surface as distance, as irritability, as numbness. Those who learned to name their emotions lived with greater clarity. They understood themselves better. They communicated more honestly. Self-awareness strengthened relationships. The study also explored how early life experiences echo into adulthood. Childhood connection mattered, but it did not determine everything. People who experienced warmth early often carried that security forward. But those who did not were not doomed. Healing relationships later in life still changed outcomes. Love received later still repaired old wounds. The good life is resilient. It allows revision. Your story is not fixed by its beginning. This is one of the book's most hopeful messages. Change is possible at any age. Connection can be rebuilt. Meaning can be rediscovered. Time does not run out as quickly as we fear, but attention does. Attention, once given, creates opportunity. The book encourages a shift in how we see ourselves, not as isolated individuals, but as participants in a shared human experience. This shift changes how we respond to others. We listen differently. We judge less quickly. We offer patience more freely, because we begin to understand that everyone is carrying something unseen. The good life is compassionate. It recognizes that no one arrives fully formed. We grow through relationship. We learn through interaction. Even conflict teaches us something about ourselves. The study also revealed that happiness is not a permanent state. It comes and goes. Expecting constant happiness creates disappointment. Accepting fluctuation creates peace. The good life is not about feeling good all the time. It is about feeling connected through all emotions. Joy feels richer when shared. Pain feels lighter when witnessed. As people approached the later stages of life, many spoke about gratitude. Not for ease, but for depth. They were grateful for relationships that challenged them, for conversations that stretched them, for love that required effort. The good life is not effortless. It is intentional. It asks you to show up even when it is inconvenient, even when it is uncomfortable. Especially then, the book subtly shifts the listener's attention inward. It asks you to notice how you respond when someone reaches out. Do you pause, or do you rush? Do you listen, or do you wait to speak? These moments shape connection more than grand gestures ever could. The good life is built in the small spaces. Between words, between tasks, between plans. It is built when you choose presence over distraction. And presence is a choice, every day. As this story continues, it invites you not to overhaul your life, but to soften it, to allow more room for people, more room for conversation, more room for stillness, because stillness allows connection to deepen. The book does not promise happiness. It promises meaning, and meaning lasts longer. When life becomes difficult, meaning steadies us. When life becomes quiet, meaning sustains us. The good life is not loud. It is grounded, and it is available to you now. In the next part, the story will move toward the final reflections. How to live forward with this understanding. How to age with intention. How to look back without regret. As the story approaches its final reflections, everything begins to feel simpler. Not because life becomes easy, but because clarity replaces confusion. After decades of watching lives unfold, the researchers did not discover a secret formula. They discovered a pattern. Connection strengthens life. Disconnection weakens it. This truth echoed across generations, across backgrounds, across successes and failures. And so the question becomes personal. How do you live differently knowing this? The good life is not achieved in a single decision. It is shaped in daily attention. When you wake up in the morning, who matters? When you finish your work, who do you turn toward? When something hurts, who do you allow to see it? These small decisions accumulate into the architecture of your life. The book reminds us that aging is not something to fear. It is something to prepare for. If you build relationships early and continue nurturing them, later years feel less lonely. If you practice openness now, vulnerability becomes easier with time. The good life in old age begins in young adulthood, but it can begin today as well. There is no perfect moment to start investing in connection. There is only the present moment, and the present is enough. The study also teaches that listening is one of the greatest gifts you can offer. To truly listen is to affirm someone's existence, to say without words that they matter. In a world full of noise, listening is rare. That rarity makes it powerful. The good life grows in environments where people feel heard, and being heard requires patience. Patience slows you down. It softens judgment. It opens understanding. When you practice patience in relationships, you create space for growth. The book gently encourages forgiveness as well. Not because harm is small, but because holding resentment corrodes connection. Forgiveness frees energy, energy that can be reinvested into living. Some relationships will end. Not every connection can or should be preserved. But even in endings, there's opportunity for growth, for reflection, for deeper understanding of yourself. The good life does not require perfection in relationships. It requires sincerity. It requires showing up honestly. As the study participants reflected on their lives, a theme repeated. What brought them the deepest satisfaction was not achievement alone. It was shared experience, shared laughter, shared hardship, shared milestones. To live a good life is to share it. Even solitude has meaning when it is chosen rather than forced. The difference between loneliness and solitude is connection. Loneliness feels like absence. Solitude feels like restoration. When you know you are connected, time alone becomes peaceful rather than painful. This is the quiet power of secure relationships. The book ultimately offers reassurance. You do not need to transform everything at once. You do not need to become someone else. You simply need to pay attention to what truly matters. Call someone. Spend time without distraction. Say what you feel while there is still time to say it. These actions seem small, but over years they shape destiny. The good life is not glamorous. It is grounded. It is built in kitchens and living rooms, in long walks and late-night conversations, in forgiveness and laughter. It is built in ordinary days that are fully lived. As you move forward from this story, carry one simple awareness. Success fades. Possessions age. Achievements are replaced. But the impact of connection endures. People remember how you made them feel. You remember who stood beside you. And in the end, when everything else quiets, what remains is relationship. This is the essence of the good life. Not perfection, not constant happiness, but meaningful connection sustained over time. If this story helped you reflect on your own life, take a moment today to reach out to someone who matters. Strengthen a bond, repair a distance, express gratitude. And if you found value in this audiobook-style journey, subscribe to the channel for more deep storytelling summaries that help you live with clarity, purpose, and connection. The good life is not waiting for you somewhere else. It is being built right now.